The tennis world is going through a whole seismic change today, so welcome back to the channel, tennis aficionados, and hold on to your seats. You have undoubtedly seen the phrase, "whole USA shocked," if you have been reading the news or browsing through your feeds. And believe me when I say that's not hyperbole. One of the most eagerly awaited, intensely felt, and intricately structured matches in recent tennis history is about to begin. We are discussing the Indian Wells Open, which is held against the breathtaking, harsh background of the California desert and is affectionately referred to as the fifth Grand Slam. However, the desert's sun isn't the source of the true heat. It originates from the recently established, extremely severe collision course. The entire American tennis establishment is holding its collective breath as Jessica Pegula, the current Dubai Open champion and the pride of American tennis, faces a challenge. She will have to contend with Alexandra Eala, an irresistible meteoric force. I understand that some of you may be thinking, wait, Indian Wells doesn't officially kick off until March 4th. You are entirely correct. Here, I wish to firmly establish the facts. The shock waves we are discussing are coming from the bracket reveals, the injury updates, and the incredible momentum these two athletes are bringing into the California desert, even if the matches haven't yet taken place on the stadium courts. Just the anticipation is enough to cause a stir in the American sports media. Why is everyone in the nation so astonished and tense? For this is not merely a game of tennis. The story of the old guard versus the new is significant. About a seasoned American soldier attempting to protect her native country against a 20-year-old international superstar who is accompanied by an army of supporters capable of taking over a stadium. Let's establish the scene and see why everyone is going crazy over this prospective duel. Jessica Pegula is on one side of the net. She is perhaps playing the best, most resilient tennis of her career at the age of 31, approaching 32. She's coming in hot. Really hot. At the Dubai Duty-Free Tennis Championships, she just raised the trophy. After overcoming elite opponents like Elena Svitolina in 5 exhausting matches, she achieved a remarkable feat by winning her 10th career WTA Tour title. She is currently the linchpin of American women's tennis and is comfortably ranked number 5 in the world. Her reliability, her flat, absorbing ground strokes, and her extraordinary tactical acumen are what the United States depends on. Pegula's name is at the top of the list when considering hard-court domination in the current age. Since the US Open last year, she has advanced to the semifinals in 7 straight tournaments. We haven't witnessed that degree of constancy since Agnieszka Radwanska 10 years ago. However, this is where the American supporters start to feel shocked and anxious. Jessica Pegula had to withdraw from the ATX Open in Austin a few days after winning Dubai. A left knee injury is the cause. Her 32nd birthday coincided with the withdrawal. Pegula has said she is pleased with the way she has taken care of her body and recovered from the problems that afflicted her in her early 20s, including a knee problem just before the demanding Sunshine Double. Miami and Indian Wells raise serious concerns. It takes tremendous lower body power, continual bending, and very long rallies to compete on Indian Wells' sluggish, gritty hard courts. Because the ball simply sits up and refuses to go through the surface, it is possibly the most physically taxing hard court tournament on the schedule. Pegula is in serious trouble if even a small percentage of her lateral movement is impaired. This leads us to the opposite end of the internet. The United States of America is collectively holding its breath. Alexandra Eala, a 20-year-old Filipino left-handed prodigy, is the only one changing the WTA Tour's demographics and enthusiasm. You are missing out on the biggest story in women's tennis if you haven't been following Eala. She is kicking the door down rather than merely moving up the ranks. We all recall her incredible debut at the Miami Open last year, where she entered as a wild card and stunned everyone by defeating Grand Slam champions Madison Keys, Yelena Ostapenko, and Iga Swiatek, a 5-time major winner. Last but not least, Jessica Pegula narrowly ended the Cinderella run in the semifinals. Eala hasn't slowed down since that fatal encounter in Miami. She broke into the top 50 and achieved a new career-high ranking of world number 31 following an incredible run to the quarterfinals in Dubai last week, where she overcame the fearsome Jasmine Paolini. It's historic. In the history of the tour, she is the top-ranked Filipino player. However, Eala is currently so intimidating for any opponent for reasons other than her rating. It's the aura. What she brings with her is the mood. No matter where she is in the world, Alexandra Eala always feels at home when she gets onto a tennis court. The number of Filipinos living abroad is astounding. Fans crowded the outer courts to the point of a fire hazard during the Australian Open, as we witnessed. We witnessed it in Dubai, where the player hotels could be heard roaring. She is now spreading that enthusiasm throughout California. One of the biggest populations of Filipino Americans in the US is found in California. The top-seeded American, Jessica Pegula, will be competing in an American competition in an American state and will unquestionably be the away player if they meet at Indian Wells. There will be an incredible, thunderous support for Alexandra from the crowd. Even Eala Pegula recognized this occurrence. Eala was recently hailed by her as a perfect role model, and she acknowledged how strange it was to play her in Miami last year with the entire American audience cheering against the American player. Pegula took it calmly. Playing against that kind of noise is undoubtedly a psychological challenge, particularly if you are recovering from a knee injury. The USA is astonished because of this. The tennis establishment is quite anxious because of this. The ultimate disruptor is vying for the title, making the current champion vulnerable. Now let's go into this amazing story in more detail. We must dissect this impending match at Indian Wells layer by layer in order to fully appreciate its seriousness. This goes beyond a simple contest. It's a 100 miles per hour chess game that requires a great deal of psychological warfare, tactical skill, and physical stamina. Since these two players have quite different styles, let's begin with a tactical matchup. The master of linear flat hitting is Jessica Pegula. She doesn't rely on powerful top spin. Rather, she takes advantage of her opponent's speed. She takes the ball very early, reroutes it into the corners with a low skimming trajectory, and stands exactly on the baseline. Playing against this style wears you out since it rushes you all the time. Pegula's greatest weapon is her intelligence. Before her opponent even hits the ball, she knows where it will go. Conversely, Alexandra Eala is sculpted on the Rafa Nadal Academy's clay courts. In tennis, being a left-hander already gives you a lot of advantages, particularly when serving out wide to the AD court. However, Eala's real hallmark is the weight of her ball. On her forehand, she produces enormous RPMs. Eala loves to hit up and over the court with a lot of spin to force her opponents back, whereas Pegula wants to hit through the court. Let's now examine the Indian Wells tennis garden, the battlefield. This surface is infamously difficult. Although it is a hard court, the surface is quite rough due to the increased amount of sand. The ball is grabbed by this grit when it bounces, which considerably slows it down and permits it to kick high. Who benefits from this? Either the player who hits with significant top spin or the player who hits flat. For flat hitters like Pegula, slow, high-bouncing hard courts have historically been a nightmare. Yes, the ball is in their strike zone, but it doesn't go through the court. Thus, Pegula will need to create her own speed instead than merely rerouting Eala's. Eala's massive spinning forehand, on the other hand, is going to blow the Indian Wells surface away. It will launch itself well above Pegula's shoulders. Flat two-handed backhands are notoriously challenged by this height. In terms of how the ball behaves, Eala's game is essentially designed for these circumstances, transforming a hard court into a clay court. The elephant in the room, physical health, must then be addressed. Jessica Pegula is really fit, as we all know. If you don't take perfect care of your physique, you won't reach world number 5 at age 31. But we can't ignore the fact that he had to withdraw from the ATX Open in Austin due to a left knee issue. In tennis, the kinetic chain begins at the very beginning. The pivot point for the forehand of a right-handed player is the left knee, which endures tremendous strain during aggressive lateral changes of direction and serve landings. Points in the Indian Wells event seldom ever end in 2 or 3 strokes. You must grind. You must put up with rallies of 20 and 30 shots. The lengthy, taxing baseline rallies that Eala enjoys creating will put that knee to the ultimate test if Pegula is experiencing any inflammation or pain in that joint. 20-year-olds have the youthful legs and unrestrained endurance to keep the ball in play all day. Early and frequently, she will put Pegula's agility to the test by making drop shots that will force the American to run forward before driving her into the corners. However, tennis is more than just using your legs and racket. It is performed in between the ears. The genuinely cinematic part of this possible matchup is its psychological component. Alexandra Eala offers more than just a potent foundation game, as I indicated in the opening. She introduces a movement in culture. The Philippines is a sports-loving nation that has been waiting decades for a world-renowned tennis player to call their own. It feels like a Davis Cup or Billie Jean King Cup tie. They have discovered. There are drums in the audience. They have a chance. They are flying flags. They cheer for everything, including forced mistakes, double faults, and victories. This poses a special psychological conundrum for Jessica Pegula. The audience typically works as a tailwind when an American participates in a high-profile match on US turf. When the American is down, they pick her up. Normally, Pegula would rely on the thousands of supporters in the California desert to support her and give her an adrenaline boost if she is having trouble with her knee or loses the opening set. However, that relationship is entirely reversed when it comes to Eala. The audience will be celebrating her unforced mistakes and actively opposing her. Pegula herself recalled the Miami game from the previous year, expressing complete confusion about the crowd dynamics and wondering where all these individuals were from. She won because of the way she handled it. However, it's one thing to do that once during a semi-final. Performing it once more while defending ranking points and avoiding a knee injury against an Eala who has really improved and is now certain that she should be in the top 30. It's a completely different animal. And let's not forget about the pressure. Aside from winning a Grand Slam singles championship, Jessica Pegula has accomplished nearly everything in her sport. She has won several WTA 1000 competitions. She consistently ranks in the top 5. However, that comes with a great deal of expectation pressure. The 20-year-old is expected to lose to her. On American land, she is expected to protect American honor. Eala, however, is using home money exclusively for her own amusement. Eala's victories are remarkable. Every victory in the top 10 is a bonus. Eala didn't appear anxious as she hit that incredible forehand winner down the line to save match point against Jasmine Paolini in Dubai. She appeared happy. She is experimenting with the unrestrained freedom of youth. A massive, earth-shattering upset is certain when a fearless, heavily supported young player is pitted against a pressed, possibly wounded veteran on a court surface that supports the young player's style of play. Let's also examine how this narrative is influenced by their most recent advertising. Although valiant, Pegula's marathon in Dubai was exhausting. The central nervous system is taxed by winning 5 matches in 5 days, including back-to-back 3-setters. She did win the title, but after a championship, there's usually a physical and emotional slump in peak performance. In the meanwhile, Coco Gauff defeated Eala in the quarterfinals. She has rested for a couple more days. She's had time to get used to it. She'll be starving. We also need to examine the lessons Eala took away from their one prior interaction. Eala tasted the level, but Pegula prevailed in that Miami 2025 semifinal. Eala came to the realization that Pegula's speed wasn't unbeatable. Eala has obviously improved her transitional skills within the past 12 months. She no longer only grinds from the rear. In order to compete with the top 5, she must adjust by entering the court and taking the ball early. Pegula will be forced to defend all the time if Eala can utilize her powerful spin to push Pegula back and then attack the short ball with her newly developed aggressive positioning. It goes beyond simply moving on to the next round. This has to do with legacy. Pegula would solidify her position as the unchangeable face of American tennis if she were to overcome Eala. It would demonstrate that she has the champion fortitude needed to weather any storm, despite the injuries, the age difference, and the hostile crowd. Eala's transformation from a rising star to a genuine top-tier championship contender would be complete if she defeated the current Dubai champion and the America #1 on American soil. It would demonstrate that Miami and Dubai were not anomalies and that the top 10 is not merely a pipe dream but will soon come to pass. There is a tangible sense of tension and the stakes could not be greater. As we conclude this in-depth analysis, It is evident why there is a mixture of amazement and dread reverberating across the American tennis scene. This showdown at a required event isn't your typical one. On one of the largest stages in sports, a cultural and athletic phenomenon collide. We will discover what these two extraordinary athletes are really capable of right now at the Indian Wells Open, which will serve as the crucible. The ramifications for the remainder of the 2026 season are enormous if this match goes as the draw and the tennis gods have decreed. Overcoming Alexandra Eala would be a significant demonstration of Jessica Pegula's tenacity. It would demonstrate to the rest of the WTA circuit that her knee is in good condition, her mind is unbreakable, and she is ready to challenge for that elusive Grand Slam trophy later this year. Using her tactical advantage to destroy her younger opponent's raw power and emotion would be a masterclass in veteran savvy. However, she could tumble in the rankings and raise serious concerns about her durability as she gets closer to her mid-30s if she falls, if the knee becomes too limiting, or if the intense spin and the loud crowd prove to be too much. For Alexandra Eala, the possibilities are endless. Her fantasy is already coming true for her. She recently informed the media that millions of people already view her as a hero. However, a victory here against a player of her caliber in these particular, extremely stressful circumstances would immediately make her a dark horse favorite for the next major events. It would justify the long hours she spends at the academy, the exhausting travel, and the tremendous amount of pressure she bears with such amazing grace. She is introducing tennis to an entirely new audience and giving it the lively, fervent spirit it sorely needs. When Coco Gauff thanked someone for bringing this new audience to the game, she stated it best. Eala isn't merely participating to gain ranking points. She is representing a whole region in her role. As sports fans, we should be delighted about this threat, even though the USA may be shocked by its reality. Tennis is the best sport in the world because of its drama, strategic intrigue, and moving narrative. We've got the conflicting styles, the gripping stories, and the potentially electrifying audience dynamic. I'd like to hear from you now. Now go to the comments area and share your ideas with me. Do you believe that Jessica Pegula's tactical skill and veteran experience will be sufficient to get past the hostile audience and her ongoing knee problems? Or do you think that the ultimate upset in the desert will result from Alexandra Eala's heavy spin, youthful stamina, and huge momentum? Post your guesses in the space provided below. I went through all of them. In order to ensure that you never miss an update as we cover every element of the Indian Wells Open and the remainder of the 2026 WTA season, please make sure to press the like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell if you enjoyed this highly detailed deep dive into the biggest stories in tennis. History is waiting to be written, the stage is ready, and the desert is beckoning. Do you want me to take a similar in-depth look at the Indian Wells men's draw in the future? Tell me. I'll see you in the next time. Until then, keep an eye on the ball.